Senior Kremlin sources indicate that Russian President Vladimir Putin has grown increasingly confident in the face of renewed U.S. pressure. Despite recent warnings from former President Donald Trump regarding expanded economic measures, Putin reportedly views these threats as limited in both scope and consequence. His resolve to continue military operations in Ukraine remains firm, even as the international community considers new strategies to curb Russian aggression. In internal discussions, Putin is said to have dismissed concerns about the impact of American sanctions. From his perspective, Russia's economy, though strained, is resilient enough to endure additional Western restrictions. He is particularly unconcerned about prospective U.S. tariffs on nations that continue to import Russian oil, such as China and India. These countries, which play key roles in Russia's post-sanctions trade architecture, are unlikely to sever ties with Moscow purely on Washington's request. Putin's calculus rests on the belief that military gains can increase pressure on Ukraine and the West to accept his conditions. Russian forces continue to push forward in contested regions, and with each advance, the list of Kremlin demands may grow. According to individuals familiar with the matter, the Russian president believes that the West has failed to engage meaningfully on his core concerns. Until that changes, he reportedly sees little incentive to halt the conflict. While Trump's recent statement proposed a 100% tariff on Russian goods and warned of possible secondary sanctions, Moscow views these actions as largely symbolic. Russia's exports to the United States fell by over 90% last year and now amount to just over $3 billion. Doubling tariffs on such limited trade volume is unlikely to shift Russia's strategic posture. The proposed secondary sanctions are potentially more significant but carry major geopolitical risks. While Trump has not yet provided full details, early drafts under discussion in the U.S. Congress suggest tariffs could be imposed on countries with active trade relations with Russia. Implementing such a measure is complex. A broad application would affect many nations and provoke diplomatic backlash. A narrower approach might target only countries importing key commodities like oil and gas. In that scenario, China and India, Russia's two largest energy clients, would be most at risk. Even so, historical precedent suggests the effectiveness of such measures is questionable. Iran, for example, has long faced energy sanctions but continues to find markets for its oil. Putin, analysts argue, expects to exploit similar loopholes and informal networks to keep Russian energy exports flowing. Moscow has experience operating under sanctions and adapting trade routes to avoid Western scrutiny. In the absence of meaningful economic leverage, U.S. policymakers are again focusing on military support to Ukraine. Trump's plan, as outlined, would maintain the flow of defensive weapons through NATO. But pressure is mounting to expand that assistance to include offensive systems capable of striking targets deep within Russian-controlled territory. During the final months of the Biden administration, Washington approved the transfer of long-range systems such as Army Tactical Missile Systems, ATACMS, extended-range HIMARS rockets, and F-16 fighter jets. These assets significantly increased Ukraine's ability to disrupt Russian logistics and command infrastructure. After the transition to Trump's leadership, deliveries of such offensive systems paused, though previous commitments were honored. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has recently renewed requests for extended-range weapons. Sources close to ongoing NATO discussions confirm that Kyiv is particularly interested in cruise missile systems, including variants with ranges exceeding 1,000 kilometers. However, such transfers carry significant political and military risks. European partners, including Germany, have been hesitant to deliver missiles with ranges above 500 kilometers. The potential deployment of long-range U.S. weapons into Ukraine would mark a serious escalation. While systems such as the Tomahawk cruise missile are under consideration, their use would provoke harsh responses from Moscow. For now, Washington is exploring options that balance strategic deterrence with escalation control. Ultimately, American officials recognize that Russia is unlikely to yield under economic pressure alone. With Putin confident in his ability to bypass sanctions and tariffs, the primary lever remaining may be on the battlefield. The success of future U.S. policy may depend not on words or trade restrictions, but on the weapon systems it is willing to provide, and how effectively Ukraine can use them to shift the course of the war.